looking better outside, right? A little bit. You can go outside, take some pictures. It's not raining for those who are in cosplay. My name is Cosmo. I'm from the Cosmo Show on YouTube. It's about the world of creativity, cosplay, and beyond. I'm also on a cool podcast called WONDERCON. It's really awesome, hosted by Derek Taylor and me on the side. It's really cool. Other than that, today we have some amazing guests. All right, they're writers, directors, actors, and all kinds of cool stuff and whatnot. So before we get to that, yeah. While the creative process is a labor of love, it's a calling that draws many of us, people that are creativity and creators and whatnot, to come out and pursue this stuff, you know? And the thing about my show is I try to tell people how to do things, educate things. So this is the panel for people that have questions that are curious about writing, acting, and just being creativity. So this is a perfect spot to be for that. Can you guys hear me? Awesome. Woo! All right, so starting off, our guest number one. You guys introduce yourself on the way through. Bada bing.
My name is Russell Multi, and previously a best-selling author. I run a publication called The Author Stack, theauthorstack.com. I have a conference and a whole bunch of other cool stuff that help authors, and also have written over 40 novels.
Woo!
My name is Matt Harry. I published 4 novels. I'm also a screenwriter and a playwright. I've done adult children adventure novels, middle grade magic adventures, and a novel about a superpower.
Hi, my name is Tessa McKeon. I write romance. I have 10 books out, and I keep writing them, and people keep buying them. So I guess that's a good thing. So that's what I do. That works.
Hi, my name is Dave. I'm a filmmaker, made a couple movies, and I hate writing. I don't recommend it to anyone, and I don't know why we all do this or why we choose to hurt ourselves in the way that we do. And
Hi, I'm Lee Boxleitner. I'm a screenwriter and director, producer, content creator, and I too am a masochist. So
yeah, right. Sorry.
I'm Doc Farrow, actor, director, producer, potential role model. I produced my own short film and also right now movie scripts. We actually won last season of the show for reaction. And yes, masochistically writing stories.
Nice. So this is one of those situations where I'm going to open up to questions. But my first question is, what are the pros and cons to being a writer? Give me the pros. Okay, give me the cons.
I think the pros are you get to do something that's exciting to you every day. It's hard for me to write something I'm not excited about. So my dad said when I was a kid, and I thought it was cheesy, if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. And I feel like whenever I'm writing, I enjoy telling myself the story. Even though it's hard at times, it's like I like sitting there. And I'm not sitting there at a desk, I'm in this world of my imagination. So that's definitely a pro. I like doing that.
I enjoy being a little drug dealer because basically writing is taking the hallucinations in your mind and then giving other people hallucinations, and I think that's a pretty cool thing. And your hallucinations influence other people to have their own hallucinations. It's just a cool thing to do.
Hey man, you got that next issue, man? I really need it, man.
I totally agree with that. I think there's a high that you get when you start writing. I think the cons come further into the writing process. You know, you get really high and feel great about this idea, then you
intrinsic to like how we construct reality. And so like being a storyteller puts you in control of reality in a way, and in control of how people see themselves, how you identify as human or not a human or whatever. And so that is a positive of being part of whatever that thing is for me.
I'd say for me, it was always, I was the kid in the movie after it would go dark and the credits would start to roll, and I'd look over and say, and then what happened? and then what happened? But what happened after that? What happened after and they always have to after. But no, what happened after that? So for me, it was a way to kind of expand on that. What does happen? Where does our imagination go after the credits go? Because that's never it. That's never it. We don't just go to bed and then wake up again. So I always wanted to know, what happened after that.
Or, if you're in the 80s, you get a bad sequel. But,
That's true. That is true.
Cons now?
Watch us all race to the con.
All right, ready, set, go. All right.
Stay on theme. You don't get paid anywhere near as well as a drug dealer, and like, that's not great. People don't really value the thing that you do in the way that you want. There's tons of competition. It's a race to the bottom, and there's a billion books that happen, so it's very hard to like get somebody to value your books as much as they should be worth.
I think pros for me is that I get a chance to find out more about myself. The cons are that I get to find out more about myself. Yeah, the pros, there's something magical about storytelling to me, and I get a chance to find out where my fears are when I write. And when I can't, I know that there's something that I can't work with. The cons are is that I have to be able to be judged by everyone else on my personal story. That's what happens with me. But they're both pros. They just really fucking hurt.
Yeah. Yeah, sitting in a room with like all your greatest fears and thoughts and like putting them down and like exploring them. Why do I feel like this? Let me write for a while listening to non-vocalized music on this topic, and let me explore that fear for a while. And then let me, look at the stuff I have to write on this stuff. Be dark, but even in the lighter parts of the dark things that I write, it's like you're still, why do you find joy in this moment? Like, what is joyful about this? And then exploring what that means. And it's like, you're evaluating everything about yourself. And so, yeah, it's rough. And then, it's also in delete, right? Because like, it's so great to just go, oh yeah, great, here, now everyone read it and shove it in everyone's face, but no one wants to read that. It's probably not very good. So cutting it and then writing it again, and that process is brutal. And it's like, you'll either be brutal to your own work or someone will be brutal to you about it, And so, I'm not trying to advocate for being brutal about your own work, but we should be, yeah. Maybe I'm advocating for it, all right,
Yeah, I think that's you hit something. One of the biggest cons is also one of the biggest benefits when you learn how to. My brother and I are writing partners, and it sounds a little bit morbid, but we call it chopping our baby's fingers off, where you have this perfect baby, and then you realize, like, well, this finger's a little weird. Let's snip that, and you have to be ready to like really change the way your baby looks.
Yeah.
And then you'll bring it to the doctor, and they'll be like, no, you should change this part too. So you go back. And so it's tough, but it's fun.
I want to make sure I'm clear that brutal and honesty about my work is not critical of it. To make sure that I don't judge myself in the middle of it, but be brutally honest about where I'm going. It takes me a long time for me to get to, it's like, no, the character wouldn't jump over this and throw this and say this. The character is feeling this, because that's what I would be feeling, and this is what really happened. That brutal honesty is really important to critique it myself, is the con that I need to get past.
Yeah, that's a really well said thing. Actually, like, the difference between, like, right, because a lot of people have a voice in their head that tells them, like, this sucks, right? And that voice doesn't serve you. but being able to be self-critical about what you're writing. So to be able to look at what you're writing and say, okay, like the story doesn't really start until, you know, page 40, 50, that's a problem, right? And to be able to figure that out and to not make justifications. You know, it doesn't matter what your mom thought of it. It doesn't matter, you know, what your friends thought of it. It's like you're gonna send this out to the world to read. You gotta make it interesting. You just gotta find that line of being critical, but not selfish.
And exactly, and the same idea as when you're writing it, it's really tough to sit there and get all the words out and then think, oh my gosh, this is horrible, this is awful, oh, why is anybody ever, this is bad, this is, oh, and that whole idea of my words aren't good enough, I'm not picking the right words, somebody else's words are way better, and that this story's already been told by somebody else and they did it way, no, it's having to kind of shut off that inner naysayer and listen to the person that says, okay, if you're telling that same story, then how are you going to make it different? How are you going to make it a little bit, you know, more interesting? You know, what are you going to change so other people will find this same one of the 7 plotline stories a little bit more entertaining than another of those same plotline stories? It's out there, but it's tough because it is competitive. Even though we try to say it's not, and we try to say that, oh, well, there's enough readers, there's enough fans, there's enough for everybody, that's true, but still you have to compete to get those first few people to be interested enough to read it, to talk about it, so the next people can read it and talk about it. It's not that you're trying to steal from other people, but you're trying to do something enough so that your voice is enough for people to want to hear more from.
Yeah,
And
it's like this really weird thing where like, okay, so you work for years to be good enough to like, for people to buy your work. And then you're like, cool, now like I just have to get people to not read Stephen King or like Jane Austen or like any book that's come out in the past 2,000 years, and like read my book instead. And like, yeah, I will say that, like, I feel like I'm a sadist then. Do I believe are masochistic writers? Like I'm a sadistic writer because like I love my work and I'm like, ooh, how can I make people feel more pain here?
I think maybe we do something very similar. Look, I didn't go to college. Well, I kind of dropped out of community college. I failed out of high school. So there's always a voice in my head going, like, why are you a writer? And I, you know, I didn't really like doing book reports or doing a lot of reading in high school. So, you know, I wasn't intensely literate. And, but I started to become a writer because I didn't like anything I was reading. And I started exploring that. And I started to say that, like, my superpower was that I would just keep writing it until it didn't suck, you know, and I would just grind it out, and I would just keep grinding it until it didn't suck, and I would have read-throughs in my house. I would have a bunch of friends. These are scripts, so it's not books, it's a little different, but I would have a group of friends. You were in some of them. And they would each play like a character, and we'd read it out loud, and then we'd tear it apart. And then I go, okay, I gotta go again. And I probably, first couple scripts I wrote in the 20, 30, 40 drafts, right? And just tearing out an act and doing it again, tearing out an act, doing it again, grind it out. And so I would start to say that my superpower in this was that I just didn't care, and I would just keep grinding out until it worked. And the more I started saying that to like writers who work, the more they would say, oh, that's how I feel about what I do. And I started to realize that maybe that is the process. It's just grinding it out until it works.
And not being afraid to suck.
Not being afraid
Yes.
to suck.
Because like no matter what the first draft, even if you love it, you will like put it away for a week and then read it and go, this is garbage. But there's something in this garbage I can take through and make, you know, treasure. So
Well, you're right? Because I see a lot of people who think of themselves and they project like, I'm a great writer, and they want to be a great writer. And so they're like, we're going to start writing, and they've already set themselves up for failure because they think they're going to be great, and they think that what they're going to put down on that page is going to be great, and people are going to read it and go, this is great job. And so if you just let that go and say, okay, I suck, I haven't done this, like, this is probably not going to be that good, but let's just put it down, and then like, I'll make it better, I'll keep making it better, then I think you can kind of get out of your own way. Yeah.
How many writers are in here?
No.
Ooh, sweet, sweet, sweet. So we all can relate to this, right? Either it's like books, novels, or content creating, and especially the pros and cons of everything. It's pretty much the same. It's a competition and everything. There's somebody out there that's always going to be better than you, but you can always learn from it, and you just have your peers, finding your peers, finding your niche. So, does anybody here in the audience have a question? Because I'll keep on asking questions. Yes.
Some of you are book writers and some of you are screenwriters. Did you always start in that kind of medium of writing, or did you start somewhere else? And or would you like to write for something else or another medium?
I started as a novelist because in 7th grade, this is hard to believe, we didn't have the internet.
Right?
So I didn't know anybody who was a novelist. He was a screenwriter who made movies. I did know people who had like written books. So when I was in 7th grade, I wrote a novel that was terrible, and a couple people read it and told me it was terrible, and I never rewrote it. And then when I went to college, I discovered filmmaking, and I was like, realized, oh, people write movies. Like, that's a cool job. I want to do that. And then after I wrote screenplays for 10 years, I came back to novels, which was kind of like running sprints and then saying, I want to run a marathon now with no training. So it was very difficult. But now, after doing both of those, I have like gear shifts in my mind because I write plays as well. So it's like, okay, if this is a play, I'm in this gear. They need to say everything because you can't see close-ups of the faces and you can't hear their thoughts. If it's a movie, it's visual. If it's a novel, I gotta describe everything. So now I can kind of switch back and forth. But it was like muscle training. It's like kind of, you have to gear up. Like this is the first novel I wrote as an adult, and it took me 3 years, and it was like I was writing 2 pages a day at the beginning. Now I can write 2,000 words in an afternoon, but it was like strength training, building that up.
I tried writing one, so it was like a long time ago. I read back and I'm like, what the hell was I thinking?
Yeah.
Real quick, I started stand-up, and I still write my own set for stand-up. Storytelling is storytelling across the board. Much to your point, it has, I hate saying rules, but it has rules to it that you have to work out the muscles for. One of my favorite movies, and I think, in my opinion, one of the best comedies of all time is Friday. And Ice Cube wrote raps, and he asked John Singleton, I want to be able to write movies. And he told him, if you can write rap, you can write a movie. You just have to change the structure. But it's still storytelling. It has a beginning, middle, and end. What it's like, what happened, and what it's like now. It all is storytelling. We do it in our everyday lives. Most people don't like talking because they'll say something and click the story. And then I talk in that way. When I talk to people, I say what happened, what it was like, what happened, and the end of it. I automatically do that. So I just have to leave myself alone and go into the different muscles that it takes. But it's still all storytelling. When I was a kid, wrote poetry. I can't remember how to do it now, but I still think that way. And when it comes to beginning, we do it automatically. My brother, when he talks to me, he says, yeah, man, it's real bad. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? Because he said so much in his head from the beginning, but he's not saying it out loud. And then I'm like, okay, go back and tell me, let's build this story together. You know, so we automatically do it, whether it's our thoughts or the way we talk or what's in our hearts, is just being able to make the muscle memory for us to be able to do that for the rest of the world. I wake up in the morning and I write in my journal. I don't write anything else until I write my journal, and I automatically know, this is what happened. This is what this bitch did, or whatever I had to walk through that day at the grocery store. And this is how that story ended. It was a day ago, and I get a chance to do something different. But for me, it's all everything that we do. Every human being is storytelling. It's just how to make it right for whatever medium.
Just to answer your question like in an intensely direct way, I specifically started like as just like a kid making movies, and I'd write a little script and then I'd shoot it, and then and then as I got older, people would give me more money to do that, and then I would write a little script and shoot it, and so on, and that has repeated my entire life. And I don't see so much difference between like sometimes I've worked at some of the films I've done, I haven't written on at all, you know. But there's no real difference to me between it's all like telling a story, you know. And so the process was they're melded together in my head. So you know, you cross a threshold when you're on that path, and suddenly there's unions and there's boundaries in which you can't do this, and you do this, and you can't do this. But the training process had none of it. It's just like pure childish creativity. You dream it and you shoot it.
Let's say I'm a novelist, that's what I do, because I love to be able to get inside the heads of my characters. I'm also a teacher, and when I teach script writing to my students, I'm always on their case. It's like you can't know what anybody is thinking. You know, we don't have the little thought bubbles. This isn't a comic book, and you don't have it was a dark and stormy night in my city. No, you don't have that film noir overtone that's going to say this is what's going on in people's minds. So I love writing novels because I can talk about what somebody's thinking and feeling when they watch somebody, you know, run across the street, or when they have that intense reaction that we as the outside observer don't normally see. So I love having that power over the characters to be able to say, and you will feel this way, and you will feel that way. So I think if I were ever to write a screenplay, I would probably have that cheesy, it was a dark and stormy night in my city, and it would look like a redo of the Spirit or something along those lines.
It was a dark Friday night.
Yeah, I mean, I think that one of the most dangerous things that writers do when they first start is they start saying, I'm a screenwriter, or like, I'm a novelist, or like, I'm a comic book writer, or like, I see this all the time because they like are siloing themselves, and like, it's really hard to make a living in any one of these things. I interviewed Mark Wolfman once, and he created the Teen Titans, and he's like sometimes you just need to burn it down because like one industry is not working. I'm just like, go and become an animator, and like, then I go and become a novelist. And like, I don't know, like in this season of his life, he's like doing other stuff, but like he made video games, but like it is that world. I've seen it so many times. I've been doing this for a long time. Just like sometimes all you have is headwind in like one industry, and you just have to be flexible enough to do it. So I don't think there's a choice. It's that thing of like self-published versus traditional publishing. Like mostly the choice is, do you want to publish or do you not want to be published? Not do you want a traditional deal or like do you want a self-publishing deal? So the more, I think you should like learn each one in like turn and like really learn whatever your chosen craft is at that time. Eventually, like, I don't know very many people who just only do like one kind of writing because they'll think of a story and be like, oh, this is a poem. Or like, oh, this is a screenplay. Or like, oh, like, it would be really cool to like do a play on this one. And like not everything fits every format well. So you just end up sort of expanding your repertoire as time goes on.
Yeah, I remember I started writing as a child, much like David, where my friends and family, we would get together and we'd make a little horror movie. It was always horror movies. And then I noticed like watching, there's something about the gratification of watching the audience. You know, where you go like, okay, so that, you can see in real time what was working and what wasn't working. And I remember as a kid starting to make those notes and then implementing that in my next little movie. And then the story started getting slowly better and then the effects started getting better and all that stuff. And it was all because I was just watching people enjoy this product. And then once again, there's no high like that, you know?
Yeah, there's only one path, and it's the same path. Like if you want to be great at anything, right? If you want to be a great athlete, it's the same exact path, right? You just have to do it infinite amount of times. It hurts like hell, right? You have to walk through 1,000 fires. It's the same journey. Like we're all on the same journey. It doesn't matter. I can sit down and I can talk to someone who, you know, is like an intense programmer. It's like, how did you learn to do this? You know, it's the same way. It's grinding it out an infinite amount of time, failing over and over and over again, kicking yourself. It's like, you know, that's the path.
But getting back up and doing it.
Getting back up. And what happens is you always think you suck. You're like, I still suck. You know, I still suck, and this suck. But then people start responding to the difference of it. And then you have to learn from them that maybe you suck a little less. And so what?
Raise your hand if you, like,
If you suck, raise your hand.
And if you have written, like, stared for 8 hours at a blank screen and then gone back the next day and continued writing, I think that's what it takes, is not giving up after 8 hours of not being able to come up with good or bad stuff.
Yeah, it's wild because
Hitting it hard the next day like that didn't happen.
it's wild because like I'm 20 years doing this, like 20 years basically, and I look at all of my friends who are way more talented than me in high school or college, and I'm like, I thought we're all gonna like be directors and like writers and stuff. It's like I just like thought that was everyone was gonna be there, and you look back 20 years and you're like, oh, like none of y'all did that, huh? Like just like 3 people in my high school like did the thing that they said they were gonna do, and so it is a lot of like you have to get up.
But the difference was capacity for pain, right? Capacity to endure your own suffering and to get back up and go, all right, let's do it again. That's why you're here, and they're not. It is, you know. It's just a weird, sad reality. That's the cost. Every artist you listen to, they played 10,000 shows for people who booed them, rolled their eyes, didn't care, and now they come.
Now they're over success.
Now they're over.
But it's wild because doing that work, you then once you've done the work for long enough, like if someone has done, I say like 5 years, it's like you just automatically are like, oh, you're in the crazy club, like in like the same kind of like bonkers thing. You just like get that like, oh, immediately like barriers come down because if you can do this work for long enough and like do it at a high enough level, like you have to be a certain level of like either have a hugely high pain tolerance to say this the masochist or just like not right in the head.
Yeah.
I think it describes us all very well.
Building the tolerance to the
Shut up. I feel like I've wiped my pessimism on everything today. I'm sorry, but it's just, that's the lens that I see the world through.
Does there anybody else have a question? Yo.
I was in another panel at this convention and I learned a new term that I never heard before. It's called imposter syndrome.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, did I touch a nerve? Can any of you explain what that is? Because I may have an idea, but I want to hear it from you.
Yeah. I'm happy to tell you a story right now. So, I directed a music video for Guardians of the Galaxy, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. And, the music video? Or the movie?
Yes.
Oh, thank you very much. So, I directed a lot of music videos at that point, and my friend made Guardians 2, and he came to me and he's like, I want to do a music video, like, let's do this thing. He showed me this video of, like, Star Wars, had this interesting, so whatever. I'm watching this story with me. But so anyways, I find myself on set, and I look around, and I'm standing there, and these aren't music, I'm very comfortable with musicians, I've directed them 1,000 times, but I look around, it's a cast of Guardians of the Galaxy blinking at me and going, what do I do? You know, Batista's wearing a gold thong or whatever, and he's like, where do you want me to stand? And I'm like, me? And I start to like really get in my head and go, I don't know, why are they at, how did I end up in this moment? It was such a surreal moment. I totally came out of myself, and then a literal voice came into my head and said, look around, just absorb it, just like geek for like a second, and then let it go. And that's literally what I did. I looked around, Karen Gillan, Palm, Rooker is giving my wife a noogie, and James is playing the drums, and Stan Lee's walking around. It's just surreal, right? And I look around and I go, cool. And then I just went, I don't care. I just don't care. And I just took it away. I walked up to them and I said, you stand over here, do this, now do it again, and then I became the director. But I have those moments all the time where it just, I leave my body and I go, why am I here? How did I end up here? What? I just made a movie with Anthony Hopkins. I had to sit across, I had a director. He didn't do a take, and you're like, okay, this is weird. But I didn't like that take. Where's that, you know, how do you possibly, you know, navigate that without having an internal dialogue that says, I don't belong here.
I'm not good enough.
I'm not good enough.
What-
Why is he taking my advice?
Why are these people looking at you? Why are these people looking at me? Why are they listening to me? I'm me. I'm a nobody. I'm a cog in the wheel, and you start kind of sliding down further and further to be invisible. And
That's exactly what it feels like.
but it's, and I personally think it comes from this idea that some of us of an age, we always were told by our parents, you're going to be a starving artist. And so that whole concept of the starving artist, you know, we'll draw for money, we'll write for money, some little person living on the street, because that's all artists do. Artists don't make money. You have to have a real job to support something artistic. So when you think about using your art as your job, it's that, I think it's part of it is that little voice saying, yeah, but that's not a real job. That's not what real people do. You have to have a real job. And doing what you enjoy as your career. No, that doesn't happen. That doesn't happen. That only happens to other people.
Yeah. Well, I also think it's a hustle. Like part of the fires you go through is you have to learn, like every one of us has learned on some level a hustle that has like flipped something on us, right? So like I remember being 18 and doing business cards and said filmmaker, writer, director, makeup artist, visual effects artist, you know, like I remember doing that and being like, it's just part of like learning your hustle, right? And so, but what happens is, all of a sudden you find yourself in a moment where you're like, I guess it worked because they let me do this. Like someone's gonna come tell us to stop, I think, but no one did. And so at least the way I experience it is that it's like, oh, I guess someone believed I was a filmmaker and let me make one. Someone bought it. Yeah. Someone bought it. Someone bought it to the hype. And it's like, all right.
Piggyback what you just said, I have a group of people that workshop my scripts, and for me, it's a very, I have to reprogram myself thought-wise. What you just said was, oh yeah, people just showed up. There's a reason for that. Among the people that workshop the script, there are Academy Award winning writers, and I lay something out, and they say, oh my God, that was great, we have these, and I'm like, what the fuck's wrong with you? Why did you say that? Why do you like that? But then I have to go back and go, you know, these people know what the fuck they're talking about. And these people have done this. So it's an evidence-based thing that starts the wheels up. Yes, I belong. This is part of my journey, and I'm enough. And to go back to authenticity, one of the ways that I know that my script is going to be different is because nobody else can tell my story. Do I have to shape things for the structure? Yes, but nobody else is going to be able to tell my story. So for me, it's very thoughtful. I have to break the thought first of the imposter syndrome. This is answering your question. I have no idea. I just know that what you said is what I go through daily. So the first part is, these people can't be as stupid as I think I am. That's the first thought. Yeah. Now, if I'm not going to trust them, then why am I breathing? Who am I going to put in my life to trust? But these guys are members of some societies that say they know what the fuck they're talking about. Am I allowed to cuss? Is this cool?
I don't see a kid in the
I waited a half hour to start closing.
So, yeah, I'm an architecting system, and we developed it last year, so this is going to be a little bit woo, style frames, not high woo, but like you're an architecting system and confidence just comes with the territory. So evolutionarily, we're taught, our bodies are like things that are different are not safe. And so, like when you are getting that fear, sometimes things are not safe. But the other thing is your body doesn't know the difference between psychological and physical pain or mental fear. Like it doesn't know the difference. It treats all of it the same. So like a lot of imposter syndrome, because there's no guardrails, like all, you could put out a movie, like if you're like, I watch multiple movies with specific actors, and some of them I think are better than others, and other people think the opposite ones are better. And like, there's no like code of like what good means. Like, there is objective goodness, which is like, hey, is people in focus, or like this like the people on screen, like is this following the action? And then there's like subjective goodness, which is like, does this touch me? Like, is this a genre I like? Is this a trope I like? Is this like an actor that resonates? Whatever the thing is this a book that resonates with me? And like, that subjective goodness, I think, is where most of imposter syndrome comes from, because like, imposter syndrome sometimes is good, because like, you start bad. If you start as not good at doing the job that you're doing, like that's any job, like maybe the best quote of all time is Jake the dog, who says like, if you want to be good at something, you have to suck at something first. That's not the right quote. That's the basis of the quote. But like, but then you get to a point where you're like, I am objectively good at this job. Now it's my subjective goodness. And now you have to put rails on the things like Doc was saying down there. Like, you have to be like, oh, one of my fans, I didn't love a book that came out. And they were like, could you stop it from insulting me? They're like, what do you mean? And so I was like, I'm insulting my work. I'm like, no, I liked your work. So like, if you're insulting your work, you're insulting my taste, and then you're insulting me. And I was like, oh, well, like, I don't want to do that. So like, I guess I can never talk shit about the work that comes out again that people like, even if it's not my favorite book that I've ever done. But like, so you have all of those things working on top of each other, where it's like, you know, your taste is like what tells you when the thing is ready. And like, is your taste right this time or wrong? Like, there's some like legitimate, like real things that you have to layer on top of when you're looking at your work. But like, then you have to like fight against your own evolution to like actually go out of your comfort zone and do the thing. But like, in order to do that, you have to break out of your comfort zone to do the thing, and so your body is going to tell you, and your mind is going to tell you, you absolutely should not do this. They're going to throw every red flag. And like, the problem is, some of those red flags are like actual real red flags, and some of them are like psychological red flags, and you have to like, you have to decide which kind of.
Yeah, I think it's also important. I'm very lucky to have I'm very lucky to have a support system, but I think knowing that you have imposter syndrome, all of us have imposter syndrome, and once again, it's much easier to just tell people instead of go through it. But if you have this imposter syndrome, just know that everyone's got it. And what you said too is like, it's never good. I'm still learning this. Someone here can tell you this right now, that I will be like, read this, it's terrible. I'm excited. Like, who wants to read this? So like, even if you're having that feeling, pump yourself up, get people excited to look at your work, read your work.
This is what, oh, sorry, I want to answer your question, but I just wanted to say, I said this last time and I think people found it helpful, so I'll just say it again. This is the last time we do it. I made a movie called Brightburn, and it was my second movie. And I had done a very small movie, like it was like $500,000, and it was a little movie. At the time I was doing music video after music video, and I was in a place in my career where I was really like, I was the guy who didn't have a lot of money. I was like that guy, right? And I was really good at making something for nothing. And I didn't want to be that anymore. And I felt like Brightburn was like this opportunity for me. And it's funny because the movie cost $6 million, but to me at the time, it seemed like so much money. It seemed like a big step up, and it was. Working with big actors, James is going to be on set every day. Like, you know, I had to really step into a role. And so I wrote a character sheet for how I wanted to behave on set. And it was pages long. And I pre-wrote my reaction to every situation I was in. I knew there'd be a moment where James and I disagreed, and I'd have to sit there and argue with James Gunn about how the scene should go. And like I wanted to be pre-prepared on how exactly I would deal with that situation. I wanted to know what I would eat on set, how I would wake, what time I would wake up, what my evening routine would be. I became a robot for the course of shooting that movie, and I just followed that character sheet and I disconnected from any emotional feeling I had, because I was method acting the director that I wanted to be. And I still do it on every movie, less and less. This last movie, way less. But what I found is that I'm still doing the things that I programmed into myself. And I became the thing I was method acting to be, you know? And I found that to be really helpful, and it helps with that, it helps with everything else just anything that you run into, you're like, well, I have a plan for this. This is what I do. Do the thing. Let go of your emotions, let go of your insecurities, let go of it. Do the thing you wrote. That's it. And I found it really helpful.
Yeah. Thank you. I have a much clearer idea what it is.
Nice.
Next question?
If you, sorry, my brain totally went blank because I was listening to you and then I totally forgot. So if someone else has another question, I'll get it back.
By the way, that happens to me all the time.
Man, it's a real thing.
Actually, I have one. Every one of your works had to come from some kind of inspiration, from an older film, older story or reference, then putting your own personal touches in there. Slice of life, supposedly, like when you connect yourself to your story, you do your method, like David was talking about. How do you find the best way to implement your prose with the material you're getting, even if it's something that coming out of the blue that you're just like, oh, okay, I had this dream. Oh, this is a great idea for a movie. So what do I do? And do I get all these ideas down? Like, what do you guys do?
I mean, I think a big step is to do, what they were saying earlier, is you have to try some stuff first, and then as you start to try it, you start to realize this is not kind of what it wants to be, or this voice isn't the right voice. Like I worked on, when I was working on this first novel, I was writing from objective third person, and then I realized it didn't really have a voice, like who was telling the story, and I realized another character who's in the story was the person telling the story, even though she was also in the story. But then once I knew that, I was like, oh, now I know what the voice is. But that was a whole other rewrite of the prose. And then I think another thing that's really helpful is to read stuff aloud. And if you say it aloud and it feels wrong to you, it lacks like a musicality, or you feel yourself bumping on it, that's a place where you need to rewrite it and re-say it. And so I do a lot of like muttering to myself when I write, and I like to write in coffee shops, so I look like a weirdo. And, you know, like, but it's really helpful because there's something about saying it and hearing it aloud. That even the prose, it starts to feel like it has a certain right order to it, that there's like a rhythm or a tone to it. And you want to vary those things too. If I have a like long sentence, then I have a short one. You know, that kind of stuff.
I use AI to read. Yeah. Well, like I have very low reading comprehension, so I'll have while I'm reading, I'll have a voice reading it also along with me in my reading comprehension. Way up.
Yeah. Remember the Final Draft? Final Draft used to have like
I still use it.
it was like a robot voice, and it would be like, you are no, and have no,
No, you can, so in Final Draft, you can program it to be your system voice. And then you can, and then like if you're on Mac, you can download like premium or like AI derivative voices or like boosted with AI. Who knows what that all is. But you can download like a higher end voice and use it through Final Draft and listen to it that way, or you can export it to Speechify, although Speechify is problematic with PDFs at times. Sorry, I wish their help responded faster and was more helpful, and then I wouldn't say that. But so they struggle with scripts for a really good books, and then there's a voice stream.
See, I use that as part of my editing process, and since I write romance, there's nothing creepier than listening to that computerized it sounds so clinical and cringy, and it's
Exactly
like,
how, right?
it's no, that's not, it's like, it's sensitive and it's, but at least I've got the verbs and the nouns in the right place, all right, and on we go. But,
So you have it
I have it
as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's cool.
I want to be clear, are you talking about to flush the idea out, or when you talk about after you put it on the page? A little bit of both. I mean, anything can give you inspiration. I mean, I'll give an example. Okay, I was at COSMOE a couple weekends ago, And a lot of the writers that did the episodic, you know, the original 80s series, said it was 4 main writers. So they were specific about a certain idea or area of where they wanted to go. I mean, the whole thing was they sell toys. But a lot of the dialogue that was in there, even though, you know, it's for kids, it went over people's heads, you know, but there was stuff in there that gave inspiration, and, you know, people would recite lines and remember everything, and it's all about the delivery, and, you know, the actors that would carry it through, and, you know, what was more important, and what would be more remembered, the actor saying the voice or the writers that wrote it, and, you know, was everything.
Sounds like X-Men in the 90s.
Yeah, exactly that, well, Larry said
So,
said the same thing.
for me, and I can only speak about screenplays.
Right.
Or short films and so forth.
Right.
I get really messy first. That means that every thought, every plot twist, every idea, every sentence of dialogue, everything about a character, I'm usually walking around for 3 or 4 days, lots of cuss words, lots of emotions, and I'm finding the deeper part of me. I tend to write for me to act, so I'm always going to be in my thing. So that's the first character I'm usually thinking about, is how I would respond, and then I break it to what other character. Everything that I want to see on the screen, I get real messy first. So that's as far as the getting to what starts to stick out and how it's going to form later. When it comes to, I've got dialogue on the page, and I want to hear it out loud. I have a group that never short of actors who want to hear themselves, talk, including myself.
Right.
So my group, the day before I say, hey, I got this script, I need this many actors, women, men, either or, it doesn't matter. And then they read it out loud, and I can go, or I can hear it, and I also have people who will say, this doesn't work, this is not the closest to the strongest choice, so forth, so that I can go back. But I have to get real messy first by getting all of that out and then pulling it to see. If I am stuck dialogue-wise, I get it to actors to say, here's the situation, say how you feel. And that's the messy part of the scene, because they're going to say stuff that might come from actors that I couldn't have thought of as a writer. And I'm sure you can say this, once you get on set, you're rewriting anyway, because you might hear something. I've said some stuff on set, and I'm like, I'm just going to say the wrong thing. And right when they yell cut, I'm like, I'm fired. Because you don't do that. You don't say the wrong thing. And then I hear a director going, hey, whatever you just said, use that. And the script, he didn't say anything to me. I'm like, great, let's go.
They're gonna edit it anyway.
Right. But that is a part of the editing. It's, you're still rewriting. You're still rewriting. An actor, I have an idea of what an actor should say. A different actor or the actor that shows up may change everything I'm thinking. And for that moment, I'm still rewriting. The final rewrite is supposedly the edit at the end. But I heard Tennessee Williams on Cat on a Hot Tin Roof after winning the Tony was still rewriting it after. Like, it's just not right. You know? Yeah. It's never.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I would say, because I think your question sort of was a multi-question thing, and so like a piece of advice that I would give, which sort of attacks your question at a different angle, is and this is something that I do all the time. I'll be with people, and I'll start to tell them what I'm writing, and to them they think I'm just telling them what I'm writing. What I'm actually doing is I'm figuring out what I'm writing. And I'm pitching that. I'm essentially pitching that. And I'm telling them, and I can see the moment I lose them. I can see the moment there's confusion. I can see the moment there's engagement. And then I start to understand the story in a way that I didn't understand it yet. Or the interest, or what every one of us has our own way in and our own things that are strengths and weaknesses, but something I think that, I guess, as I'm saying this, I'm figuring out, something that I think I'm okay at, is I'll be at a party and I'll know if someone's interested in what I'm saying to them or not, if they're engaged in the story I'm telling them or not. And so I just use that as a means of development before I start writing anything. I start talking about the character. Really, it's hard to tell the whole story.
But if you just go, okay, it's a story about this, and then this, and you just tell the setup into the story, you're gonna find that if you're being really honest with yourself and self-critical, you're gonna find that you don't really have it. And then you're gonna have to rewrite the opening because you have not given the listener, who happens to be someone who's across the party, a reason to care about the character, a reason, or a real conflict that is perfect for that character, or that is uniquely situational particular, that's interesting enough to like hold a reader. Like you will know right there in that 2 minutes that you tell them that if you have it or if you don't have it. And that's always really powerful. Every time I figure out a story, people never know it. It might have been him right there at some point just telling him, hey, I want to do this, and then I went, oh yeah, there it is. You know, I found it, and then I can go right.
I also noticed something that I do. I'm a very conceptual person. It took me a long time to realize the difference between concepts and story, and what the story is about. And I realize now, like what I'll do is I'll come up with a concept for something, write the concept down, and then start writing out different stories that could take place in this concept. And then I'll get this like. The only way I can describe it is like a magical, invisible kick to my ass that goes like, this is the right one to tell in this setting. And then I focus on that. And I literally use that magical kick to my butt for everything. Like when I get that feeling, I'm like, this is the way I gotta go. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
You can introduce genre to that.
Exactly.
What
genre is this concept?
Yes.
Really quickly, I'm sorry, to both of your points, when I start writing, I'm usually having a concept that's real big. But when I go to my group, I always isolate one person and say, I have a story about a guy. And for them, they'll question everything I'm about to say, so either if I can answer it, if I can't answer it, I have to go figure it out again. But yeah, staying away from there's a post-apocalyptic concept that I have in my head right now, but that doesn't mean anything because I still have to write a story about something in the middle of all that.
A good example.
I hate to cut you off. I got the red lights. They're kicking us out.
Oh no.
But was that helpful, guys? Give a round of applause for our One question?
One more.
It was just that, for beginning writers, do you have any advice for when you get your work in front of somebody for the first time, how do you get honest feedback without them feeling like especially in your group at first, right? Or how do you find people to get your work in front of that will give you honest feedback?
Don't ask family or people you love.
I mean, yes, but who do you ask?
There's no honest feedback from anyone. You have to find, and by the way, feedback is who is qualified to critique your work, right? Like I make a film and I put it in front of an audience. Who's qualified to critique the film? Maybe other filmmakers, but they would just do it differently than I would. So what you have to do is you have to hear critique. You have to find people who will offer you any criticism or any concern. If someone's telling you it's great, who cares, right? And if they're telling you it's bad, that's also useless because good or bad, great, it's totally useless. Encourage them to use different words. Slow, engaging, fun, funny, like use words other than good, bad, worked, didn't work, and then you need to distill, like part of the process, part of learning how to, do it is distilling is learning how to distill what you will respond to and what you won't respond to. And that's gonna just like carve who you are as an artist and who what your voice is.
Yeah, my rule is anytime someone tells you that something is wrong, they are right. Anytime they tell you how to fix it, they are wrong. Almost 100%.
100%. All the time.
I like that. It goes down to the note beneath the note.
Yeah.
Like, don't take the note itself, take the note beneath the note. And I've realized, like, that's the most frustrating note I've ever gotten in my life, but it's always right in a way. It's weird, like, whatever section of my script someone's having a problem with, they'll suggest something that is always terrible.
Yeah.
But it will tell me that problem in the script or that's part of the script has a problem, and
Yeah.
I need to work on
And
it.
it is
You know?
Create an area, and then you kind of, you can be like, oh, it sounds like it's just too long.
Yeah,
Or,
exactly.
Yeah.
To practically answer your question, there's groups everywhere.
That's where I'm
It's
saying.
a relationship that you're going to have to build with your support group.
Yeah.
I'd say, start looking, it's, you know, this might sound kind of silly, but take a look at coffee shops. They'll always have, you know, they'll always have little signs up there saying, oh, well, this writers group meets on Tuesdays at this place. Go to your local library. They'll have things, check on Facebook, check on social medias, because there are writers groups for every genre, for every style, everywhere. And it's just being willing to go out, and again, when you talk about those relationships, you want to make sure that you don't just walk into a group of complete strangers going, hi, could you read my work? That usually doesn't go over very well.
Tell me how good it is. Yeah.
And tell me, I'm awesome. But yeah, there are so many people that are out there that would love to read it and that would love to help. And then you will eventually find those people that you can trust to give you the feedback that you need, as opposed to that it's nice, it's good. Because that does not help. I mean, yes, it's an ego boost, but then you send it off to a publisher, and they look at you and they say, how dare you think that you can write and leave my parents. Actually got a rejection letter that was like that. It's like, oh, thank you.
Well, you know what you can, what's wild, you can find the editor of your favorite book, and they probably work freelance, and you can just hire them to edit your book. And you can do that a bunch of times.
Yeah.
I have one suggestion for the group, is that you want someone who's not going to try and fix your script. To me, that's biased on their level. You want someone who you have to listen for, who is going to amplify the story, voice, your voice, by making stronger choices for that. Oh, I like that idea. I'll take it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
That's the best thing.
Well, thank you guys. Round of applause for our panel. Awesome. I think I did a good job so far. Sit back and listen. I did a good job.
Oh.
You knew that you were standing in front of
I'm having
Oh, yeah, sure. I'll say it.
the answer, everyone.
Yeah.
It's this one.
Thanks everyone for coming out.
I think
Be sure to subscribe to the Little Canoe and the COSMOE Show on YouTube. Thank you.
Nice job.
The second black of my life. I'm gonna celebrate my drink.
There you go.